These are programs that have human language as an input, and then we generate the text output, okay? As simple as that. But what's what makes these large language models so powerful? Well, sure, they understand human language, but they understand the semantic meaning behind human language, all right? What do I mean by that? Well, if I tell you that the movie was great, what does that mean, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the word great, right? So depending if I answer that question or if my friend answers that question, we're going to put that on a different scale, right? In that 1 to 10 scale, on a different part of the scale, right? And that's what semantic meaning is, right? Understanding kind of the abstract concepts behind the human language, right? And this is what machines struggled before, right? Before language models existed. Machines struggled with understanding these concepts. And now, with language models here, we are able to build amazing things. Because we're able to understand this semantic meaning in the human language, right? And then we have examples like ChatGPT, Google Bard, Claude, that are able to do this very nicely. And here's are some ways in which we use language models, right? Q&A, summarize text, generate code, code results text, right? And yeah, as I said before, well, not before language models, but a few years ago, it was really hard to get them on. This is an open source framework built on JavaScript and Python for now. And what it allows us to do is that it allows us to chain as a kind of thanks to the sense that understand what where LangChain lies, definitely. And just for you to understand where LangChain lies in all of this, you have to understand the different levels of abstraction there are, right? The different ways in which we can communicate to machines. So down here, kind of the most fundamental level, we have CPUs, GPUs, and storage.
This is a good slide. This is a very good slide. OG. What the? AI Studio.
And then we're able, CPUs and all that, CPUs, GPUs, and storage are able to communicate between each other using an operating system, right? And then some smart people decided that, well, we can actually communicate with the operating system using binary code as well, and other types of code, but they all fall in the same level of abstraction. And then some other smart people came by and they said, well, can we resemble this to the English language so that it's easier to program and encode all this stuff and communicate between machines in an easier way? And that's how we came with all these programming languages, right? And then some other people said, well, I'm using the same 40, 50 lines of programming language to build something from a specific application, let's say for data analysis. Why don't I bundle these 40, 50 lines of code that are going to be the same every time I build a similar application and add them to a library, right? So now I don't have to write these 40, 50 lines of code again, right? So that's what a library is. And a framework is essentially something similar, but for building applications, right? And that's what LangChain is. It allows us to build AI-powered applications quicker, right? So essentially, this allows us to program more effectively and more efficiently and in less time. And then we have these other abstraction layers, and then we get to application level, okay, or layer. And this is where most of us are when we build chatbots, agents, automations, and so on, right? Make is an application, anything is an application, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, right? And my software as well. So I think it's good for you to just consider what all these are, especially where LangChain lies and how it helps programmers, right? And where make anything and all the applications that you use stand by, right? It's an application level. And funnily enough, make anything and all these applications that have AI modules in them, most of them are probably using LangChain in the background, right? So I think this is pretty interesting and somehow useful to consider, right? But anyways, what can you build with language models using LangChain? Well, you've probably built stuff with Anything or Make or Zapier, for example, right? So this shouldn't be very mysterious at the moment. But yeah, conversational chatbots, agents, systems, basically anything that involves language inputs, sorry. Now let's touch on the LangChain basics, so the core concepts that you can build applications with using LangChain. And the reason I'm explaining this is because I want you to have an unbiased way of calling all of these different parts of an AI application or AI system, right? Because in YouTube or wherever you are, when you hear about AI and people talking about AI, you get thrown with different concepts and words, right? Assistants and so on and this and that. So I want you to have an unbiased way of calling all these things, right? What is a better unbiased way of calling things than going to the actual framework that all of these things are built on, right? So we're going to go through these concepts. I think I just laid out two, so it's not too many. So we have the concept of chains, and chains are basically just language models and tools just placed one in front of another, and they basically all work together to achieve a result, okay? Especially the language models. So the concept of chains is specific to the language models. So the thing to understand here is that you can make a complex task that involves language models chained together so that the input of a language model is an output of a previous language model, right? And that way you're able to perform complex tasks. Okay, and you see some examples here, but don't worry, you don't need to really focus on that. You just need to understand the concept for now. And here I have a resource that I will put in once I share this. I will share this presentation, and you will be able to click this, okay? And this takes you
model, it is now possible to develop AI applications much faster written. LangChain, created by Harrison Chase, makes this development process much easier. I'm thrilled to have Harrison here, who had built this short course in collaboration with deeplearning.ai to teach how to use this amazing tool.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. LangChain started as an open source framework for building LLM applications. It came about when I was talking to a bunch of folks in the field who were building more complex applications and saw some common abstractions in terms of how they were being developed. And we've been really thrilled at the community adoption of LangChain so far. And so look forward to sharing it with everyone here and look forward to seeing what people build with it.
And in fact, as a sign of LangChain's momentum, not only does it have numerous users, but there are also many hundreds of contributors to the open source. And this has been instrumental for its rapid rate of development. The team really ships code and features at an amazing pace. So hopefully, after this short course, you'll be able to quickly put together some really cool applications using LangChain. And who knows, maybe you even decide to contribute back to the open source LangChain effort.
LangChain is an open source development framework for building LLM applications. We have two packages, a Python one and a JavaScript one. They're focused on composition and modularity, so they have a lot of individual components that can be used in conjunction with each other or by themselves. And so that's one of the key value adds. And then the other key value add is a bunch of different use cases, so chains of ways of combining these modular components into more end-to-end applications and making it very easy to get started with those use cases. In this class, we'll cover the common components of LangChain. So we'll talk about models. We'll talk about prompts, which are how you get models to do useful and interesting things. We'll talk about indices, which are ways of ingesting data so that you can combine it with models. And then we'll talk about chains, which are more end-to-end use cases, along with agents, which are a very exciting type of end-to-end use. The common components of LangChain. So we'll talk about models. We'll talk about prompts, which are how you get models. Focus on composition and modularity. So they have a lot of individual components that can be used in conjunction with each other or by themselves. And so that's one of the key value adds. And then the other key value add is a bunch of different use cases, so chains of ways of combining these modular components into more end-to-end applications and making it very easy to get started with those use cases. In this class, we'll cover the common components of LangChain. So we'll talk about models. We'll talk about prompts, which are how you get models to do useful and interesting things. We'll talk about indices, which are ways of ingesting data so that you can combine it with models. And then we'll talk about chains, which are more end-to-end use cases, along with agents, which are a very exciting type of end-to-end use case.
Bro, what the fuck? Can I not see the chat? Pop out dashboard.